Welcome. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I am going to give a little tour of my RALPH pipeline. I do not use the Anthropic plugin for RALPH. I have my own RALPH that I had developed prior to the plugin being released, and I've been very happy with it and continued to evolve it. It has definitely been an ad hoc evolution. I hadn't previously thought of it as like a target project. It was just something I was building to support or help my workflows. It's starting to appear that it's going to be more than that. And so this is the first little peek at it, but it's probably going to evolve a lot from here at some point. The first relevant piece is that there is a Claude Code plugin, and that Claude Code plugin provides a skill and a bunch of little little scripts that help it interact with the REST endpoints of the service, and that makes it so that you can just add the plugin, to your install or to a project, and you don't really have to make any other changes to the project. What I actually do is I really just actually specify the plugin directory on the command line as part of the alias for Claude. But of course, you could put it in the config, do it just like any other Claude Code plugin. The first thing I want to do is I just kind of want to demonstrate its use a little bit, what you can do with it. And then I'm going to kind of go back and talk about how it evolved and where it's going to go, I think. So let's load a few things here. The critical part that has to be loaded is the RALPH goal. That is the skill from the plugin. And let me just let it finish here. And we'll load. Okay, so the way that at this point, I can just ask Claude to make a goal for RALPH, and it will. And so I'm going to demonstrate that and a series of a couple of goals to kind of show off some of the features. So I'm going to do a really simple one here. Let's create a draft goal. A draft goal that will create a draft goal to create a ping.md file in the project rut with contents. This is enough here, right? Given the skill that Claude is going to say, oh, I need to use the goal create skill. And it's going to follow the guidelines for how goals should be created. And it just created goal 250. And so if we hop over, we can see that it just created goal 250. It's in draft. And this is the text that it created. Now, the sections that are here are largely dictated by the instructions in the RALPH goal skill. This is how RALPH expects goals to be created. Okay, so what I also want to demonstrate is that depends on goal 250. It should delete the ping.md file and create a pong.md file with the contents equal to, with the contents of pong equals 37. So all I've done here, of course, is create kind of pointless little tickets, and they're just going to create files in the directory when they run. And I've set up a dependency of the second one on the first one. And so if we come and look, we can see if we click into 250, did. Oh, sorry. If we click into 251, we can see that it depends on 250, right? And so now if I were to move 251 from giraffe into queued, what should happen is that Ralph runs, which is the orchestrator part, should pick it up and start to work it. Except for that 251 is blocked by that dependency on 250. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say queue goal 251. And I've had Claude, oh, I didn't do it this time. I've had it be overly smart sometimes and say, hey, this has a dependency. It's telling me that it has a dependency. I've had other times I've had it actually say, no, I'm not going to queue it because it has dependencies. But it did queue it. And so if we jump back over and look, we can see that 251 is queued, but Ralph runs has not picked it up and has not started working yet. But if I say yes, queue 250, what we're going to see is 250 will pop up into queued and then pop up into running. So we have it queued. Eventually the orchestrator here will pick it up. It's already picked it up. So if we come and look over here, we can see that it is in the running state. If we click here, we can actually go follow the output of my Ralph script. Obviously, there wasn't a whole lot to do. It wrote the file, and that was it. Now, if I hop back over here real quick, and if I say reset, actually, I bet you it's not done. Let me go here. What we can see is it still is processing 250, right? Because 250 still has to run its checks before it's merged to main. I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. This is kind of a gap in the way that my log collection works right now. We can see these events happening in the orchestrator, but I probably want to actually see them happening as part of the actual goal run, right? So I probably would prefer to see the goal is completed, and then I would actually like to see the process of merging it here. Okay, so that is done and merged, and what's probably happening is it's picking up 251, but we can do this real quick. And if we take a look, we now have a ping file, and if we cat ping, oh, that's interesting. Ping is, oh no, there it is. Ping, I missed that for a second. Ping is set to 42, right? That was the goal of the first ticket. And now what's going to happen, it followed that dependency order. Let me go here and then go, it's running 251, or I could have hopped back here and then clicked on the log and got to the same place, right? So now 251 is similarly being processed. It will eventually run through and be merged here. It's not quite done yet. Just give it a second. There we go. So it's completed. It's completed. And if we come back over here, and if we clear, this reset repo script, by the way, just is fetching main origin. I use JJ instead of Git, but that's really all it's doing still. And if I LHMD, we can see that we now have a Pong file. If we cat out the Pong file, it's Pong equals 37, right? And now let's demonstrate one more thing. Create a goal, a draft goal to delete the pong.md file. So this should create another goal, put it in draft. Add an attachment to goal 252. So the goals support attachments. At the moment, they really only support Markdown attachments, but these will be expanded to support file types so that we can attach images or other assets to a goal that could be used in the processing of the goal. And so if I were to hop over and take a look, 252 is, it created the goal to actually delete the Pong. And then it has this lorem ipsum text attached, right, as part of the goal. And of course, you can process and edit these things. Delete the attachment. So you can edit the attachments. You can delete them. You can edit the text of the goals, et cetera, et cetera. So now if I pop back over here, and if I go look at 252, we no longer have an attachment, but I do want to actually schedule that one. So Q252 to run. Because we don't want this Pong file hanging out in the root of our project, right? So now what happens, what's going on here, the number of pieces is kind of crazy. Originally, there was just the RALPH runs script. It wasn't even that. It was just called a RALPH script originally, and it was just a script. And so what I would do is I would manually call that script, and I would pass it a goal file. The way that it works, trying to think of the best way to demonstrate this. I'm just going to describe it. The RALPH runs script has it's a script. It has a template for a prompt. And what it does is when you give it a goal file, that prompt template embeds the goal file and kind of wraps it in it as an envelope. And that envelope basically says, hey, you're going to run in an iterative loop. Here's your goal. Complete one significant task and then report back your progress, and then you're going to run again. And what happens is every time that it runs, it's given its own summary from the previous run. So the thing that it's asked to do is make the code change and provide a summary back of what you changed. Do one significant step forward. That's basically the ask that it's given. And so it does that, and it provides a little summary back. That's a paragraph. And what the outer loop does is it collects those runs. So it has the original goal, and then it has a progress and a progress and a progress, and it feeds these back to the RALPH loop every single time. Once enough progress reports accumulate, what it does is it starts to condense the earlier ones into a summary so that it keeps the context usage down. And I have seen this run for over 30 hours. And at that point, it once it gets to 10 loops, it kind of maxes out, because that's where everything starts. You end up with all previous history summarized and 5 progress reports. And so on a typical run, it starts out with like 25 or 30% of context used, because there's nothing loaded in context except for the goal and then this little bit of a wrapper for RALPH. So it ends up being extremely efficient. So that's the basic process. Then it evolved. This RALPH runs thing became an orchestration tool to run multiple RALPHs. And so what's going on now is that we can see it if we go look here. The remote origin for every one of my local projects. So I have a projects director, and inside of that projects directory is Ikigai and plans and RALPH plans, RALPH shows, RALPH counts, RALPH logs. I'll show you all these in a minute. RALPH runs, the pipeline, they all exist in my project folder. Well, everything in that project folder considers this local file path to be its remote origin. So the The origin for every one of my local projects is just on my file system in mount store git, and so that is the origin. So when I'm pushing or pulling to the remote repo, it's still on my file system. Um, those remote origins, the stuff in mount store git, which is like the canonical entry storage place for all of these projects, uh, they have a remote, which is GitHub, and that is purely only for backup purposes. I'm not using GitHub in any other way anymore. Um, okay, so then, as I was describing, in my local projects folder, this is the part that I work in. The remote origin is this mount store git folder. Um, Work with it normal. It still has a remote. It just happens to be on the local file system. But what this gets me is when the Ralph orchestration runs, what it does is it goes out. I didn't show that. Let me show this. So when you create a ticket, what you're doing is you're specifying just like on GitHub, we have an org. Just let me click into one here. So you have an org, AI4M Greenlee, Ralph shows. And so if I were to go look, so this is I might be logged out right now, so I don't know. But you can see this is the AI4M Greenlee account. And the Ralph Runs project is part of that account, right? So when you are looking at, when you're looking at the URL in GitHub, right, you see the org and then the project name. And we do the exact same thing here. So when you're looking at any particular project, it is the org and the project name. And what this means is it's a simplified, let's go here, let's go here. It's kind of a simplified representation. I know that this part matches what's on GitHub. And so when I create a Ralph goal, I'm just specifying the org and the repo. It knows to look for it here. If it's not here, it can fetch it from GitHub, and then it becomes the local origin. And it just has that same representation, org and repo. But anyway, when Ralph runs, and let's go over here and take a look. So I currently have Ralph configured. Can't launch. I currently have Ralph configured to only run three clones at a time. It's enough. There's no practical limit to this. I could run 10 if I wanted to. But what I've found is my preference has drifted towards a relatively modest number of clones running with proper dependencies and everything kind of flowing through. And so I haven't found, and I was running 7 of them for a while, but I'm not really finding an advantage to that. And so I had lowered it down. But anyway, so there are up to 3 currently, whatever I set max to, clones available. If a goal comes along for any particular repo, it's going to be specified as org repo. What Ralph is going to do is it's going to look in the local file system. If it's not there, it's going to look in GitHub, clone it to here, clone it to the clones folder so that it can actually do work on it. So once the orchestration has cloned it there, it's going to do work on it. And then it's going to merge that work and push it back to the local repo and push it back to GitHub as a backup, right? And so that's what it's doing. Now at this point, all of them have run, so the Pong file was eventually removed. Okay, so let me just kind of walk through the other pieces. I mean, this is really pretty straightforward. There is a Ralph loop script that iterates. It takes its progress and as feedback, and it keeps on iterating until it meets its goal. The orchestration is looking at this particular project. There is just not much here to see, but it is the REST service. It's kind of a mess because I just have not cared about these things. It is the REST service that is backing what you're seeing here, right? It is fronting a SQLite database. It is providing the REST API that both this front end use and the orchestrator uses. There is the RALPH logs. What RALPH logs is another service. Eventually, these will all get rolled into one thing, but I made them one at a time. What RALPH logs is a really simple service that is running locally that you can tell to watch folders for file or for logs. So cat launch. So let's take a look at it. So right now, when you run RALPH logs, it's being told to watch these glob patterns for log files. If a log file exists under that glob pattern, then what it does is it makes it an available choice to view from here. And so when the orchestrator, if you noticed, when the orchestrator is running, so let's hop back over here and cat the launch file again. So this is the orchestrator. When it's running, there is it's writing the goals file to here. Hold it. It's writing the logs for the orchestration run to this location. It could be any goal number right there, and it's writing to RALPH log. And so, and so it picks those up, right? And so it just dynamically sees whatever any log files that are in any of those paths, and it shows them. And so, like right now, there's not much running. The orchestrator here is running. So if I kill if I restart the orchestrator, it's stopped, but that log file is there. But you'll notice now if I actually run it and then go back and look at the RALPH runs log, it just reset because I have that particular application overwriting its log every time it restarts, so I don't have to go clean logs and rotate logs. Okay, so that's what the RALPH logs does. It's generically lets you watch any log file that is readable by the process, and so it very, very flexible, right? Kind of an independent tool. And then I have let's go back here. So we have RALPH counts. What RALPH counts is just collecting statistics from the runs. I haven't been paying too much attention to this. I put it together pretty early on. It was actually the second piece to get created. I had the individual RALPH script, and then I created RALPH counts. RALPH counts initially had its tokens out being calculated completely wrong. And you can see that almost exactly, I started using this about 30 days ago. So pretty much there's a bunch of gaps in here because I essentially took last week off and I was rewriting how RALPH works. And for a while, this didn't accumulate data. But as we're going forward, what we should see is a ton of useful information coming out of the RALPH runs into here. And what I'm hoping this demonstrates is I'll be able to see the effectiveness of my process will ramp up. You'll see the token spend go up, basically, and the time processing and whatnot. So, okay, so there's the actual RALPH runs, which is the orchestrator. There's the RALPH logs, which just allows files to be followed. There is the RALPH counts, which I just showed you, which is an independent service. Now, obviously, this is the easiest one. I'll bake it into RALPH shows. RALPH shows is the part that we're looking at here, and it realistically, it's just a simple REST service that has a couple resource types, a goal with attachments, with a few properties so that you can create dependencies and things like that. And that's really all there is to it. And you can kind of just see that there are just a number of states that goals can be in running. Stuck. Let's talk about stuck. Stuck would happen when RALPH completes, says, cool, I've just completed this work. It meets all the needs. but it can't merge it. It runs into a merge conflict, and it isn't able to merge it. So that particular job would end up over in stuck. And the idea there is that there is, of course, a requeue tool. You could add comments. I guess I never mentioned this, but you can add comments to these. You could, for example, add some comments to help give it guidance about how to get unstuck and then requeue it. That'd be one path. You can also just pull it into the local project and manually fix it and push it back if you want. You can do any number of things, but the idea is if it's not able to move forward in an automated way, it just falls off of the rails and it goes over into stuck, and it stays in stuck until human intervention comes along. And of course, you can complete things and cancel things, and we have draft. That is pretty much it. So that was RALPH shows, RALPH plans. It's all there. I think that pretty well describes the RALPHs. Just kind of a little deviation from the normal stuff. This is how I do my Ikigai work. Everything ends up being a draft that I potentially can attach some documents to. I send them off to RALPH runs. What I've been finding more and more lately is I end up working on multiple tasks, even inside of Ikigai, where I am setting up some goals that are running in this space of the code, and then I'm setting up some goals for another space of the code where I'm pretty sure there won't be any conflicts, and I'm just pushing those through. And then periodically, as it's running, I just pull it down. I just reset to main and or verify things, and it's mostly a roll forward process. I've talked about that in my other blog posts. So I do milestone releases, and then I do all my development on main, on trunk, right? And so generally it's all having to pass the test. Generally it all works, but I treat it, once I'm past a milestone and I'm just merging to main, there is not guaranteed to be any human review at any point in there, and I treat it as a roll forward if anything needs to be corrected. So yes, it passed all the tests and everything worked, but it also wasn't human reviewed. And so while the goals are running, I kind of switch back and forth. I'm creating a new goal. I'm verifying some old stuff that happened. If it's not exactly like I want, I create a new goal to roll forward with the improvements. And I continue to do that through the development cycle of a milestone. Then as I'm getting to the end of a milestone, that's when I kind of shift modes, and I'm not doing new raw improvements. I am just trying to polish off any rough edges and make sure everything is working. So I use the same workflow. I'm still writing goals, and I'm still pulling it down after, periodically after those goals, and doing human verification. But it starts towards the end of of developing the milestone. It shifts from early on, it's lots of new, fresh work with smaller amounts of verification. And as I creep towards the 1 or 2 week cycle that I'm trying to maintain, then I shift over, and it all focuses on just cleaning up the work and making sure that all the tests are passed and everything is exactly as I want it. Okay, that was probably entirely too long. This is the first peek that I've kind of showed anyone of my RALPHS workflow. Obviously, it was kind of, stupid examples that I just used, but I was more trying to show the features of how it works. If you watch in any of the live streams, you will see heavy use of the RALPHS workflow in the future. Okay, thank you. We'll talk to you later.